anytime we see someone successful or crazy successful, I think we believe that they're radically different than us. Like they were groomed or they have these talents. And the truth is they just had time on task over time.
What's up, everybody? It's Joe Herrera. Welcome to the Team Leader Academy podcast, Facebook Live, StreamYard, whatever you want to call it. For those of you who know Taylor and I, you know that we basically have had one coach our entire real estate career. We're not event junkies. We don't bounce from Tom Ferry to Cheplack. We don't jump all over the place. Our one mentor and coach our entire real estate career has been consistently Brett Tanner. Brett's has always been significantly ahead of where we want to be. I remember meeting with Brett originally. Man, it had to have been 2012, maybe 13.
I was going to say at least 10 years ago. At least 10 years ago.
At least, yeah. And Brett was somewhere that we couldn't even imagine ourselves being. And now fast forward 10 years, he helped us get to where he was. And now he's where we want to be in 10 years. And so there's that constant. I'm very careful who I learn from. I'm very careful what information I ingest. So Brett, thanks for hopping on with us. I appreciate you taking your time to meet with us. And I'm excited to chat with you today.
Well, thanks for having me. Very, very kind intro. You guys are, as you know, you're master implementers. It's what you do, right? You take ideas, you get them in your business, you make them better, and you guys crush it. So it's been an honor of mine to, act as a guide in a small part of your success. But I love watching you guys, so it's super fun for me.
Well, and what's crazy about it is Taylor and I we kind of had two different relationships with Brett. We came down to your office originally. We met in Phoenix. You laid out your Brett Tanner home selling system at the time because it was primarily residential resale real estate you were doing. And we half-fade it, like we halfway did what you said. And then there came a moment where we were like, we've either got to go all in and literally listen to what Brett says and do what he says, because we would run everything you said through a filter. And we're like, well, that works for Brett, but here's how it would work for us. And so I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 years ago, we were like, if we're going to do this, we're going to go all in. We're going to listen to Brett. We're actually going to implement the things he tells us, no matter how hard it is. And since then, we've seen a massive explosion in our business. So maybe talk about that, Brett, because you coach and mentor some of the top agents from around the country. You're in Gary Keller's inner circle. Like, what is it about real estate professionals that makes us so willing to sign up for mentorship coaching and events and so unwilling to actually apply the things that people teach us?
That's a really great question. I think you said it really, really well, which I think people all have this, you can call it a drunk monkey, a limiting belief, or whatever you want to call it. And they go, yeah, Joe, but that's you, right? Well, I'm seeing you today. I see the big, you have this big brokerage. You've got this massive network. I see all these things you're doing. But Joe, that doesn't work in North Dakota, right? That's going to be, I think that's just our internal. Anytime we see someone successful or crazy successful, I think we believe that they're radically different than us. Like they were groomed or they have these talents. And the truth is they just had time on task over time, right? So most ideas, now there are some ideas, right? If you're in a crazy high-end market, some of the things that apply to there may not work at a $100,000 price point. There's some things, but general business principles work everywhere. So I think the first you got to say is it can work in my market. And how can I make it work, right? So realizing that we're not as unique as we want to be, and that the people that are really, really successful maybe have just been applying more time more consistently than we have.
Well, it reminds me of that moment in one of my favorite movies, The Groundhog Day, when Bill Murray finally breaks down and says, I think I'm a god. And Annie McDowell, the actress, said, like, you're not a god. Trust me, I went to Catholic school. You're not a god. And he said, well, maybe I'm not a god, but maybe God has just been alive so long and experienced so much that he knows everything, and it was kind of that moment where Bill Murray's having some reflection. So talk a little bit, Brett, about your origin. Like, I know you pretty well and I know your background, but how was real estate become your chosen craft? What I love so much about it, and we'll get into it, is our mission is very similar to following your footsteps, which is, if the sale of a piece of real property creates commission income, how many different ways can we attack that commission income to create not only as many commission points as possible, but other ancillary streams of income? So how did real estate become your thing?
So I actually was an investor. I was flipping homes. I was doing the investment business, and this is 2002 or three, right? Small at that point. It's my own money, my own resources, and I'm just flipping houses. And I got my license. I was working with a realtor. It was great. And I just wanted more control over the flip. So like, why wouldn't I just manage my own, I'll just list it myself. It makes more sense. And so I did not want to be, my goal was not to be a regular, in the retail business. And so I had a friend that wanted to buy a home, a friend that wanted to sell a home, help them. And I realized these two businesses that even today, people keep them really separate. Like you guys have a massive investment business and a massive real estate business. But there was this back then, it was even further away. People just separated it. Like it was totally different skill sets. I'm like, it's real estate. We could list it, we could flip. So I came at it from the investment angle. And so as I grew a really, really big real estate practice, residential practice, I've always had a really big investment practice. I've always had both. And you start looking at ways as you grow these businesses, you're like, we spend a lot of money to go out and get a customer that loves us, knows us, likes us, trusts us, wants our advice. But then we just hand them over to a title company or a lender or whatever. Or an insurance business. But why that customer already likes what we do, Joe? They like what you and I are doing. Why wouldn't we go help that customer say, hey, well, would you want to use our title company, right? And own that? Or would you want to use our lender and own that? Or you want to use our insurance company and own that? Or I know you and I are talking about some other ancillaries that are out there right now. And so I think that you've got to look at, and that's why everyone's running to our industry. Like, why are the iBuyer? Why are they all going at it? They're after the commission, but that's a small part of the overall picture. And no one's been able to do it yet, but if you're able to monetize the whole transaction, well, you could go spend more to acquire a customer. And Joe, if you could go spend twice what I am, if you can go spend 2 times as much as I'm able to spend to acquire a customer, well, you're going to just beat me in competition. There's just no way about it. If I'm able to spend 2,000 to get a customer and you're able to spend 4, I can't compete with you. And so I don't think the iBuyers disrupt the industry. I think smart realtors having the discussion that we're having are the ones that disrupt it, because you have the relationship with the customer, and that's what they can't. There's no way to just break that apart. And so when I look at the business today, that's where it's going, right? Really, really large teams, large organizations that really offer a high quality experience and figure out other ways. And so that's the retail side. But also in the investment side, be their own iBuyer and make sure that they're maximizing the wealth building opportunity that exists in real estate. And I think that's the mistake when I look at agents that have a great 30-year career, right? They sold a ton of real estate. They have all the awards. They have a really nice house. They just don't have a lot of money. And what happened is they spent a lot. They didn't spend any time taking that cash and investing it to have passive income and wealth. And I think it's kind of a long-winded rant there, but I think that you start with figuring out how do I grow this really big business as I get a lot of cash. What am I really doing with that cash? Leveraging my real estate knowledge to do more.
Well, and that's what I love about our masterminds, when our one-on-one coaching, you always start with personal wealth building. And it's so different from scripting and not that we don't talk about it, and marketing and advertising, not that we don't talk about it, but you start with, where is your personal wealth at? What's your debt to income ratio? Show me your P&L. It's always for you about wealth creation. And I think it's something that so many people are uncomfortable with, because they're like, I'm just worried about making the payment on my Maserati that I can pretend I'm wealthy with, right? But I think for you, it's always been about, where's your P&L? What type of wealth are you creating? I think one of the things I love about our relationship, Brett, is I'm a very visual person. I'm all passion. Taylor, as you know, is much more of the intellectual, like he thinks at a much deeper level than I do. I view the world and our mentorship relationship as like the crap hits the fan, and Taylor and I immediately look at Brett. And what I love is then Brett is waving us into a burning building like, guys, let's go freaking crush this. And there's so many people right now saying like, the economy's kind of struggling. I'm worried about recession. I'm worried about housing units. I'm worried about all this thing. And then the message coming from you is like, are you guys ready to create massive wealth? Because that's what's going to happen over the next couple of years. And it's such a refreshing take, because there are other mentors and coaches out there saying like, double down on your calls, get your scripting dialed in, go knock doors. Not that that won't come from you, but what will come from you is an overall, I hope you guys are prepared to become massively wealthy in the next couple of years, because that's what's going to happen. So talk about that 30,000 foot view. Like we very rarely get into the weeds because I don't think you care if it's like I always say with exercise, if it's CrossFit, if it's Zumba, if it's cycling, whatever, just exercise. So I don't know that you care as much about the tactics as you do about the game plan and the overall vision of the future.
So what I think about, so last time this happened, right? I got licensed, my license I got in 2005, right? So I had a little bit of the good and then things got hard. And my career was made in the last recession, right? I mean, 2009, by 2011, we were the number 9 team in the entire country, right? Mm-hmm. So whatever, 1.4 million agents, we were number 9. And so it's not a time to be feared. I created all of my wealth after the last downturn. I mean, not all, but the overwhelming majority, right, was in that time. And so people get scared of you don't need to be scared of the recession. You just need to have a plan. So what's different this time for me, I didn't know how it worked last time, right? 2005, I was 25 years old. And I kind of looked around. I'm like, well, the people who are before me, how do you handle this? I don't know. I just thought they weren't paying attention or they didn't want to share. I don't know.
Right.
This time I look at it and I go, oh, I know exactly how this goes. Like I know exactly what's coming. I know when inventory increases. I know what that looks like. I know how to change the listing business because we don't want to service listings forever. So I know what we need to do to ready the company. I know what I need to do with my wealth to get ready for opportunity. And so it's kind of a really weird moment, Joe, for me, honestly, because I talk to others. I mean, you hear it because we talk, but I talk to others and they kind of look at me like I'm an alien saying, look, there's some really challenging times coming and it could be the greatest experience of your entire life if you're ready for it. And so like, that's what, and again, in our upcoming math, that's what we're going to talk about. How do you get ready to make this cycle the one that just takes you out of the game if you want to be out, right? And that opportunity is there for everybody. Just be interesting to see how many people are really ready for it.
Well, and we've got our event here today. And as I was driving to it this morning, I thought about the difference between surfing, which is something my father grew up doing in Westchester, California, like Manhattan Beach area, and wake surfing, which is something that us desert rats do because we don't have an ocean. So we create our own wave. And I thought about like our relationship with Brett is literally wave creation. Like there's so many realtors like sitting in the water just waiting to be pummeled by waves. And then there's individuals like you who are going, screw this, I'm just going to create my own. And it's the thing about a traditional wave in the ocean is you ride it for 6 to 10 seconds. I've wake surfed for like 4 or 5 minutes at a time. I just choose when I'm done. So talk about that mentality of like, I'll just see what happens to me versus manifesting and creating your own destiny.
Well, so I'll go back up. When you a minute ago, you're like, hey, Brett, you start every event or every coach call. It's like, I always start with the end game, right? I don't think anybody or most of us, right? I'll speak for me. I didn't wake up and go, you know what? I hope at the end of a 30-year, I hope I'm the greatest listing agent of our time, right? I hope that I'm the best buyer's agent that ever.
Right.
That just wasn't. I like our customers. I love our people. I love all those things. But however, I got into this business, or when you start a job, a career, whatever. I did it for freedom of time, freedom of like, how do I get to do the work? Who do I get to do it with? Where? And how much money do I make? All those things. And so to me, wealth, passive income gives you that choice. So I start with where do I want to be? Okay. And then how am I going to get there? So if I look at from that vantage point, okay, I need to get passive income and pick a number, but I'm going to make up numbers. I'll make $10,000. I want to get $10,000 a month passive or $20,000 a month because that's what I make. And I want to replace it. Cool. So now about making the wave. Well, what's the most likely strategy to do that? We talk like you guys, you've got rental property, you've got seller finance debt, we're carrying paper. So there's different strategies. And so there's strategies and times where the real estate market's going like this, and there's times for this, there's times for that. But you got to, again, going and buying a luxury Airbnb today might not be the moment, right? I mean, I'm not saying it is or isn't. It just might be something to think about. Now, he said, hey, I want to put some really good seller finance debt, like some of the things you guys are doing. Gosh, do I think that's going to do really, really well in a tough time? I do. Do I think affordable housing is going to do really well in a recession? Yes. So like, I think mirroring up your wealth building strategy, just like you're mirroring up your real estate business to the market, your wealth has got to have the same thing. And so I know I just really come at it from that vantage point of what's the end game, right? How are we measuring success? And how do we know if we're on our track? And am I applying the right message at the right time?
So you're a little bit like me. I know your background somewhat. I think your dad is successful enough that you were able to go on some trips and stuff, but your dad, if I remember right, your dad wasn't a wealth creating individual, or maybe he was. So like how do you, because one of my limiting beliefs has always been my family's kind of a disaster. And so I'm like, the first long while in my career was trying to outrun the ghosts of alcoholics and drug addicts and terrible financial planners. So like having 50 grand or 100 grand in the bank for me was like, oh my gosh, like I'm wealthier than any of my family has ever been. What I love about our relationship with you is you're always pushing us to go like, well, yeah, I mean, 100 grand's cool, but imagine 10 million. And 10 million's cool, but imagine 50 million. So you're always pushing. Where does that come from? I mean, did you come from wealth? Was your dad a wealth-minded individual? How do you help someone who comes from a mom worked 2 jobs and dad kind of skipped out on us? Like, how do you then get into wealth creation? Because there's so much nurture in us that says, man, if I can make my car payment next month, I could take my foot off the gas.
So it's a really great question. I don't think I've ever told you a story. So my parents, you know this part, but my parents are farmers. They're from Colorado. I'm from the poorest county in Colorado. So my high school graduating class had 17 people in it. So I get poverty. Now, growing up, I would tell you we were poor. I mean, my dad was working his business, and over time, that business did better and better. And I'd say my dad had a really great skill. So he's a really brilliant businessman. Unfortunately, he's a product of his time. Like, I think if he would have grown up in our age today, I think he would have been actually ridiculously wealthy because he's got the skill set for it. He has the business acumen. But he grew up in this era where there wasn't podcasts and they weren't pumping a lot of self-help out of this county I grew up in with the country. So we didn't grow up with a ton of money. We did well towards, as I became a teenager, he started making more money, but it would not be like the wealth we talk about today, right? Like he does really well for a really small town, if that makes sense. Yeah. And so I had good mentorship in him in terms of some business principles and hard work. And he instilled work in me, right? And so from there, it was all learned, right? I started with everybody. I mean, I started at zero. And I really will tell you, if I said one thing I've done really, really intentional was learning, right? I mean, when I say, I've read, I don't know. I mean, if I told you, my wife says we got more bookshelves and closets than she just thinks. I've got thousands. I have thousands of books that I keep. So it's weird. If I read a really good book and I get it all done, I got to save that thing because I got it all. I know where all the pages are that I need if I need something. So I'm a student of learning, right? I devour information. So when I want to get purpose about wealth building, that if I'm talking directly to someone who's watching this, like, what's your wealth plan? Like, how much time in a month are you spending on entertainment, Netflix, Amazon Prime, and how much time are you spending on building your wealth? Now go look at your bank account, and does that give you the answer of maybe why you're at where you're at? For me, I'm hyper intentional about that, right? I spend a lot of time reading about money, and studying wealth. And over time, right, you become a really wealthy person. It's just whatever the more you pour that in, the more you get that out.
So talk about this, because I love this exercise. What's up, guys? I love this exercise that you've walked me through before, which is, and because you're so purposeful with your time, I know you created the Tanner Academy. Like, you don't play around. Like, you saw something weird happen with COVID. You see your kids getting older and you're like, screw this. We're homeschooling. We're traveling the world. You've walked us through an exercise with days left, holidays left, golf trips with dad left. And so talk about that exercise and then maybe the effect it's had on you.
Yeah, so you start by taking, I'll just do it real quick with really quickly here. So I have if you come to one of our events or just, you could do it here, take your current age and subtract it from, let's just do 85 years old. So I'll just do the math in my head here. Jeff, I'm 40 years old. Subtract from 85 gives me 40. I'm doing some calculations here. So gives me 45 years. Now there's 365 days in a year, which you take that, so that 45 times 365 gives you 16,425 days, right? So for me, if I'm a 40-year-old watching this and I live to 85, and I'm just calling that optimal. Some people, you could shoot it to 95, but let's agree that 85 to 95 is not the optimal time of life, right? The most optimal time, Joe, for you and I, is the next 10 years, right? You're not wake surfing 85, you're wake surfing the next 10 years. So I've got 16,425 days left on this planet under optimal circumstances, right? So you start thinking about, number one, our time is very limited. Number two, start thinking about, I just saw your kids walk by a minute ago, right? So you start thinking about until your kids will spend 80% of their lifetime, 80% of the time they have with you will be spent while they're under your roof. 80%. When they move out, right? If they stay in your state, you'll see if they move out of state, mathematically, you will see them 10 days a year. So if your kids go, that's usually, 2 days a time, 5 trips a year. That's just the average person, right? So, you look at your parents. So my dad's now, he's 82 years old, right? If he goes to 85, I got 3 years left. Now he's a very healthy guy, so he's gonna go beyond that. But so I got to be objective. I am the one that lives out of state. So think about that. 10 days a year is probably about when I see my dad. If I don't get intentional, I got 30 days left with my dad. And so I did this exercise myself. It was like 10 years ago. And I was like, well, screw that math. I can change the math though. Joe, I don't have, that's the average math, but I don't want to be average in anything. So I like golf. I don't love golf. I took over all my dad's golf trips. He had 2 trips a year for like 5 days. I was like, I'll run the trip for you and all your buddies. I'll book it all. I'll run it. I didn't really want to be a travel agent either. I just wanted an extra 10 days with my dad. And so I think for everybody watching it, how can you play a different game with time? So back to the kids, I looked at my kids, I've got a 9, 10, and 13-year-old. We got COVID, school's weird and all this stuff. I was like, what would be cool is to take a year off and travel the world. Take a year out of school. I'm going to get my own teacher. I call it the Tanner Academy. I mean, it's our own curriculum. We delivered it. And we went travel. We've been around. It just ended, by the way. My daughter's actually going to stay in the Tanner Academy. My boys want to go back to the regular school to visit their friends.
Right.
But anyway, I took a year off. I still ran the companies. We doubled every company's growth while I was away, at least 2 weeks a month out of the country, traveling with my family for the last year. And so real estate and wealth building, getting intentional, and kind of the conversation you're having around how do you think about your time? How do you think about your money? And just how do you think about what do you really want out of your life? Those things really impacted me and changed a lot of the way I think about things and time and how I spend my time. And the last thing I'll say is I am so, as you know this about me, I'm so anal about wasting a second of time. We don't go and make more money, but you can't get that second back.
Right.
And I think people are so willing to waste their time just wasting away watching a bunch of episodes on Netflix rather than reading a book that could change their life. So I think that getting hyper intentional with your time.
Well, and I see this over and over again, memes on Instagram, and it's almost like I think it's a audio that people are putting over their videos, which just says, the Buddha said the biggest mistake that most people make is they think they have time. And where I've received this training from you for like 5 or 6 years, my son now received his missionary assignment. He's going to Africa for 2 years in a month and a half. And I was sitting there in February going like, holy crap, we just had our last Christmas with Porter as our kid. Like, we're going to get Christmas with Porter as a man. We're going to get Christmas with Porter as a married man and a father. So it's not like our relationship's ending. But the last, like, wake up at 6 a.m., come down and see what Santa Claus got you is done. And that's like a gut punch. Then I look at my other kids and they're probably going like, Dad, you're freaking out on us just because Porter's leaving. I'm not leaving. Yeah. But I'm like, how do I maximize my time with them? And the only people who can maximize their time are the ones who are disciplined and purposeful enough with their wealth creation to be able to say, you know what, we're going to, Bali, or we're taking off and we're going to Hawaii for a week. And I'm not going to not be able to make my house payment. I'm not just going to charge a bunch of credit card debt. But like when something gets gnarly, or when you say, hey, I've got to make some corrections over here with my wife or with my children, or I've got to spend more time with my parents, I've got to take over my dad's golf trip. The only reason you can do that without ruining yourself financially is to be gangster enough on the front end financially to be able to, because I think you were the one who taught me, do not use your time to make more money, use your money to create more time for yourself. And that's such a powerful principle if people will really, really understand it. So heading into the,
go ahead. You will say. No, I was just going to say people are so willing. Like, I love using money to make more money. I mean, it's great, but more on the front end, to your point, using your money to create more time. That's the trick, right? And it can start small, right? Whether that's the landscaper, right? Whether that's the pool guy, you're using money now to create time. Because if you get time back, you get 2 choices, right? I could invest that time in my business, or I could invest that time in my family. Both of those are brilliant investments. right? So just go out and use your money and create time. I leverage everything in my life. I mean, to the utmost extreme of, like, we have a handyman that comes in for 4 hours a month. Same day, like the second Tuesday for 4 hours, he's got a list. Why? Because I'm not handy. I can't fix anything. My wife loves it. She builds a list all month. He comes in and knocks it. It's an amazing leverage point that costs like next to nothing. Right. That makes her really happy. But and I can spend that 4 hours right now going doing something awesome with my wife, awesome with my kids. I can go spend 4 hours working on a critical project. I mean, I bought that time back for $100, $200. Right. It's just changed the way you think about time and money.
Well, and you've helped us develop this concept as well around investment strategies, businesses we've started. Taylor and I always give you a lot of pushback because we're like, man, if we ran this thing ourselves, we could our P&L is like 80% profit. You're like, you know what's cooler? 40% profit with zero of your time. And it's such a hard lesson to learn. But as we've listened to you, I can tell you honestly, and you know Taylor and I's finances in and out, our wealth creation has skyrocketed over the last few years as we've let go of control, as we've leveraged individuals, the who's in our world, to create more time for ourselves. And now one of the things, and I can't, there's so many things you've taught us that we don't have time for it all, but you gave us your checklist of 10 things, 10 ways you evaluate every business opportunity. And now Taylor and I, when a new opportunity presents itself, it's like, all right, well, let's go to notes. I've got it on my phone, notes on my phone. I'm like, does it check off number 1, 2, 3? Okay, we're still alive at 6. And then every once in a while we get to 7 or 8 and it's like, oh, there it goes. It's done. And it's such an intelligent way to think, because the longer we're in this real estate game and the more experience-based talent we acquire, like, more opportunities come at us almost every day. And so it's like, you have to then be smart. So talk maybe to the seasoned agent who's just, squirreling everything that comes up, every opportunity that comes their way. What is the mistake we make in thinking we can be everything to everybody? Like, I'm sure for your wife, she's like, dude, if Brett took his shirt off, started, chopping down a tree, it may drive her crazy. She may think it's the sexiest thing she's ever seen. But you go, well, how, what's sexier is me making the money and never have to take my shirt off and chop down a tree. So
she actually now would definitely she wants to be back in. She wants this horse in the saddle, not chopping trees down. But yeah. So I think the challenge, here's the challenge in real estate. Excuse me, sorry. There are 1,000 ways to have side hustles in real estate, more than probably any other industry. And I think people think, oh, I'll just go over here and I'll do this and and they've got these 32 different fractured efforts. And the problem is they get a very limited result from 32 things. And the reason I created that opportunity criteria you reference is because I needed a way. I built it for myself. So like, I get an opportunity every day and I got to go, how can I be objective and weigh an opportunity, whether I should pursue it or not? And so what I would tell most agents, until your core business, number 1, is crushing it. Pick your core, right? Like, you guys crushed it in your team, then you crushed it in the brokerage. Now you're crushing investments, and now you're going down. But I think the mistake people make is too early. We go try to crush 10 things. We got to get one going that has leverage points. You're not doing all the revenue. You got a really good business. Cool. Now go jump into the next one. Get it going. Get it to the point where it's crushing it without all of your effort. And now you can go build a really, like you guys are doing, build a really massive life. But the mistake in real estate is they start having a lot of side hustles. They don't realize that, I think massive success is on the other side of massive boredom. And so you might be getting a little bored with your business, but that might be where you're about to have massive success, because it just takes a lot of time, right? But I think the new sexy, shiny object seems really, really cool, where that thing that you've been doing that's about to break through doesn't seem as cool.
Yeah. Well, listen, Brett, how can people get in touch with you? Because I'll tell you, some of the people listening to this have heard me multiple times. They're probably like, dude, Brett sounds a lot like Joe. The reality is Joe sounds a lot like Brett, because Brett is one of the very few individuals on this earth that I listen to. I did I'm trying to break through the social media space with reels and influencer media and stuff. My most successful reel I did talked about limiting negative outside sources of information, getting down to statistics, like make sure you're Make sure you're watching the numbers and what's actually happening and not just being manipulated. I think I know the advice that comes from you is something that every single time I put it in place, it's created additional wealth for Taylor and I. Like when people ask, what do you pay Brett for his mentorship and coaching? I say something along the lines of, well, Brett pays me like 7 figures a year. And I literally repeat that every time, because it's not that you've ever given me anything other than the knowledge, the experience, the mentorship, the coaching, and the guidance to create it. You came to us with an idea for owner financing and the hierarchy of a listing. And now Taylor and I own, 30 properties that are owner financed. And we're going to do 70 fix and flips this year. And it was a business that didn't exist 2 years ago for us. And it will be a 7-figure deal for us this year. And it's because on a coaching call with us, you were like, hey, here's what I'm doing. Here's what you guys should do. And all of a sudden Taylor looked at it and I was like, bro, go run with that. I've got our residential side. You go run with that. So how do people get in your world? What is somebody's listening?
So first of all, I love what you said about thank you. That was very, very kind. Too kind, actually. Thank you. What I would say is this. I don't believe that there are costs in life. There's investments, right? There's good ones and there's bad ones, right? I've invested in some training that, sometimes it's not good, but so there's no cost. It's just investment, good or bad, right? I hope I make an investment that's a good investment, right? And so what you're saying is your coach has been a good investment. Easiest way to get in contact, we got a free Facebook group where we have a part of this conversation. You're aware. Be a Wealthy Agent. Just request to join it. Jump in there. It's free. Jump in the conversation. It's a lot about wealth building. Really, that's the whole goal, is to help agents create wealth. Beyond that, I'm in there. Tag me. Reach out to me. If you got something specific, we'd love to chat. But jump in there. That's the easiest place. Go to Be a Wealthy Agent on Facebook. Request to join. Get in there and let's have a conversation.
Okay. Brett, I appreciate you, man. Can't wait. July, what are we looking at? July
27, 28. Park City. See you there. Looking forward to it. Love what you do, man. Thanks for all you do for the agent community. And we'll chat soon.
Okay. Thanks, buddy.
See you next. Bye.